A few weeks ago, EA Sports broke the internet announcing the return of the college football video game series that has not been released since 2013. But in the last few days, we really got our first update with anything to do with the new video game. As return of news anchor RBT, today's simply just gonna go over the few little news bits that have been released the last few days surrounding the new college football game. So excited for it. We still have no idea when it's gonna come out. My prediction is still probably 2023. I know that sucks, but that's just my prediction. Let me know when you think the game's gonna come out in the comment section below. Do you think it'll be next year? Think it'll be 2023, 2024? And also, make sure to subscribe. We're on the quest for 1 million subscribers by the end of the year, so make sure to click that subscription button if you have. With that said, quick little first bit of news comes from Notre Dame. So as you see the headline of this article, Notre Dame won't participate in new EA Sports college football game until NI rules are finalized. Oh yeah, and if you guys want me to do the news anchor type videos when news does drop, because I mean this game is going to be massive, let me know. I mean they're fun to make. Guys seem to enjoy them. I mean I wouldn't make them if you guys didn't seem like you liked them. But I think it's a nice little way to keep you guys informed. One of the biggest brand names in college football isn't yet sure whether it wants to be included in the revitalized EA Sports college football video game when it returns to the market. Notre Dame Athletic Director Jack Swarbrick said his school will not provide its name, logos, and other branding properties to EA Sports for the game until new rules that determine whether athletes will be able to receive a cut of the game's profit are finalized. The NCAA has indicated that it intends to change its rules to allow college athletes the ability to make money from some type of endorsement deals. Federal and state lawmakers have also pushed legislation that would open up similar opportunities, some of which are scheduled to go into effect as early as this summer. Now, we've already kind of talked about this in the initial video where it was announced, because it's no longer called NCAA Football, it's called simply EA Sports college football, unless something dramatic changes. Now, that kind of alarmed some people initially, scared like we weren't going to have any licensing for the college football teams because maybe the NCAA is not involved, so what the heck's going to happen there? Well, EA Sports is getting their license for the schools directly through the CLC, which is the college licensing company, so they just pretty much are completely bypassing the NCAA. We'll also go more into detail about the CLC and what EA Sports gets for the college football game from that in the second article we go over. But basically what this means is that the schools in the CLC are going to have to come up with their own kind of deal with EA to be involved in the game. Now, as Notre Dame mentions, they're not going to be in the game unless the players get paid. My opinion is the fact that I think by the time this game does get released, which I think will be 2023, I would say I'm 75% certain at that point in time there's going to be laws in place, legislation in place to where the players will be allowed to take a cut from this game, because how it literally works is every player that would be in the game would all get like maybe a $2,000-$3,000 stipend for being in the game. Like, what does that freaking hurt? And that would actually even be better, because like you wouldn't have to have the old school QB number 10, QB number 5, running back 22. You'd actually have the actual player's name and their likeness in the game. So I think with the way that college football landscape is moving, I don't think this will be a problem. Like, I understand why he said it right now, but as of right now, like, this doesn't matter. Like, EA Sports, literally, if it came down to there being 3 months before release, they could add Notre Dame in then. Like, if the laws were appropriate at that point in time. Like, I think, like I said, next 3 years, everything will be fixed, everything will be changed to where Notre Dame's demands will be met, and they'll actually be put in the game. Now, what happens if that actually doesn't go down, and they're really not in the game because they don't get paid? I think, like, they'll probably do a generic, like, Notre Dame school, like maybe South Bend. I think the first ever college football game, which was like Bill Walsh football, college football, like what, 93, I think they were just called like South Bend or something like that. So I think that's the worst case scenario, but at the same time, like I said, I think this will be okay. But like, I mean, we have 2 years for this to kind of go down. And college football is moving in the direction where I feel like players will finally start to be able to sign some endorsement deals and make some money from their name, which I think should be the case. But that's for another video. As those rules are developed, it is our strong desire that student athletes be allowed to benefit directly from allowing their name, image, and performance history to be used in the game. Which, once again, if everything goes down like I think it will, that will be the case. If you get the ability to use your likeness in the game, that just gives EA the ability to make the game that much better. So, like I said, I know why he's saying this. It's kind of annoying. I think it's kind of open for a knee-jerk reaction when people really don't know what they're talking about. But I genuinely don't see this as a big deal, like, at all, because it's going to more than likely be changed by the time the game's actually released. In order for athletes to receive money from a video game, they would likely need the ability to negotiate as a collective group on a price for the use of their names, images, and likeness. It's not clear while their future rules will allow for those type of group licensing arrangements. The NCAA group working on these particular rule changes has thus far been opposed to allowing group licensing. I think that's stupid. I think it'll change. Like I said, they would get paid like a little stipend if they're a part of that group to allow their name. Obviously, like I feel like every player would want their name to be in the game to make up $1,000, but for like they might not. Like think about Barry Bonds back in the day. He never was in the MLB games because he pulled out of the licensing agreement and he got deals on his own, and like his name was like Reggie Stalker in the game. So like maybe that would be the case for some athletes, but I don't know why an athlete would not want to be in the new college game for in return a couple $1,000. EA Sports announced earlier this month that it plans to resurrect its popular college football game and had begun negotiating with FBS level schools to include their name and other publicity rights in the new version. General Manager Daryl Holt told ESPN that the game makers are prepared to move forward without using the name or images of players in the game, but that they are closely tracking the proposed changes and would consider including the players if new rules allow for it. Once again, the company's not said when the game's going to be back, but it won't for sure be this year. And I don't see this as a problem at all because they don't have to have the likeness of the player done right now to be able to include it in the game like 2 years from now. Like as long as they got a deal done like maybe 6 months in advance, I don't think it would be any like problem for them to be able to add like real player names and likeness in the game. For EA Sports, I wouldn't think that would take any bit of time. Just a little blabber right here. The Notre Dame is the first school to publicly declare that it wants to wait for new rules to be put in place before making a decision on whether it will participate in the game. Like I said, I think it's just kind of stupid to even say this stuff publicly like years in advance. Although maybe it's smart because maybe like they're doing this with the sole purpose of kind of putting pressure on the NCAA. I think that honestly might be the only reason, and would be the only reason to come out and even say this now. Because like I said, probably 2 years in advance when the game even comes out, and saying it now. But I think, like, actually, this could be a good thing, like, putting the NCAA in a corner, you know? I don't get this last bit. Swarbrick did not say the players would have to be involved for Notre Dame to eventually participate in the game. I mean, isn't that just completely, like, against the whole entire point of what he was saying initially? Like, wasn't the whole point, like, saying they're not going to be put in the game unless the players get paid? So that's weird. Like, that just seems like that just completely eliminates the whole, like, premise of his argument. Like, that's weird. Now, here is the big boy article that kind of breaks down the licensing that EA Sports has with the colleges as of right now and what they could and could not potentially include for the new game. So here's the list: EA Sports College Football, the teams that are in the game and the teams that are out, and other stuff that's pretty big. And this article is probably the biggest update we had in terms of what actually will be in the game if everything right now didn't really change. They even say the release date is still unclear, but it is assumed to be either July 22 or July 2023. I really hope it's July 2022, which would be next year. I doubt it, but that would make me so happy. Now here is the EA press release. Through the CLC partnership, which we already talked about, is the college licensing company. The franchise will include the rights to over more than 100 institutions featuring the logos, stadiums, uniforms, game day tradition, and more that fans have come to know and love. While this college game will not include student-athlete names, images, and likenesses, EA Sports is continuing to watch those developments closely. Like I said, they have to say that right now because they can't like go ahead and get into the planning stage and assume they're going to be able to use the student athlete names when they might not be able to, which I think they will, but they can't go into initial development thinking that. So it's understandable why they said that. Now here's the important information. I'm just going to scroll through it really quick. There's 130 FBS teams. There are 118 of them that are a part of the CLC licensing agreement. So as of right now, these 118 teams will 99.9%, unless something changes with their agreement, be in the game because EA already has the rights to it. And that does leave 12 out as of right now. That doesn't 100% mean they're not going to be in the game. As of right now, they're kind of in between, not knowing what's going to happen. Now, I'm just going to not going to name them all, but here's the list of schools that are 100% sure going to be in the game. Now, this is where things start to get interesting. Teams that may not be in EA Sports College Football. The 12 teams below are not part of the agreement. They could still make their way into the EA Sports College Football game, but a separate agreement would need to be made. Like I said, it wouldn't have to be part of the CLC. They have to get like an individual agreement with EA Sports to be in the game, which I don't know why these schools wouldn't want them to be. I'm sure they're getting some sort of compensation for it. The teams that right now might not be in the game: Air Force, Arizona State, Army, Clemson, Georgia State, Kentucky, Navy, New Mexico, Notre Dame, Pittsburgh, Troy, and USC. I'm pretty sure actually Troy is in the game. I think I saw somewhere where somebody said this article is incorrect and Troy is actually a part of CLC, so maybe we take Troy with a grain of salt. Now, something else I do want to point out is the fact that I don't think Clemson and USC is a problem, because as you guys know, in face of the franchise, you've been able to play with Clemson and USC. So, like, they've obviously already, even though they're not in the CLC, had some sort of agreement with EA Sports to where, like, they already have a relationship. So I think, like, 99.9% sure, if nothing even happened, like, with these teams being put into that college licensing agreement, USC and Clemson would 100% be in the game, because they already have a freaking partnership with EA Sports. Now, the other teams, I don't know, but like I said, I would be willing to bet 95% sure that all of these schools right here will, one way or another, be in EA Sports college football. Now, if they're not, wouldn't be shocked if they go the, like, generic college route, like, because they need to fill up the conferences and stuff. Now, if they end up, for whatever reason, not being in the game, I'm sure they'll probably do, like, a generic, like, created college to kind of make up for it. So instead of, like, being at Georgia State in the game itself, they didn't have the licensing, like, they're from Atlanta, so it might be the Atlanta Tigers. I don't know, something like that. And they have the same school colors, so you kind of know it'd be Georgia State, but at the same time, it didn't say it's Georgia State, just because that would get around the legal problems. Even more information that a lot of you might not have known in terms of the conferences, there's 7 of them that actually have partnership with the CLC. So 7 conferences as of right now will be in the game. The other 3 conferences will do one of 3 things. Either get an individual agreement with EA Sports, number 2, eventually become part of the CLC, or number 3, they'll be in the game, but, like, not called, like, the SEC. If it was the SEC, they'd be called, like, the South Conference or something like that. They'd still have probably those schools in that conference. It just wouldn't have the SEC logo, the SEC name. Like, you get the point. So apparently the 2 non-Power 5 conferences that are not in this CLC agreement is the Mountain West and the MAC. They apparently have a partnership with whatever JMI Sports is, so they obviously don't have a deal with EA, and it's kind of, I'm curious to know if EA would want to spend the money with the licensing agreement with JMI Sports if it's just for, like, 2 non-major conferences, but the only Power 5 conference that is not a part of the deal is the Big Ten. They would have to get an individual agreement with the Big Ten for the Big Ten to actually be in the game. And for a bunch of other things that are licensed by the CLC that will be in the game, obviously the College Football Playoff, the Heisman Trophy, and pretty much all the big bowl games and a lot of other smaller bowls. So my light just went out. What just happened? That was it anyway, so that's an interesting way to end the video.